Today I'd like to share with you the Chinese story of the myth of Nian. Once upon a time, long, long ago, there lived a monster in China called Nian. He lived under the sea, in a cave, and slept most of the year. He only awoke for one day each year, the last day before the Lunar New Year began. The warmer weather woke him, and he arose from the sea hungry and ferocious. Nian was a man-eater. He would come to the villages in China each year to devour people and wreck their whole houses. Many had tried to battle with the mighty Nian. Many had tried, and all had failed. The people of one particular village were so terrified that every year they fled to the hills to try and escape the wrath of Nian. One year, on the eve of the Lunar New Year, an old traveller came to the village. He was bent and weary from his travels, and he desperately wanted food and lodging. He went to the door of a house to beg for food, but the woman inside turned him away. She had no time for beggars because she was preparing for the move up the mountain. The old man tried to ask a young girl on the street for help, but she was too busy as well. She had to find her brothers and sisters and start the long walk up the mountain to escape the monster. The only person who paid the old man any notice at all was an old woman. She was sweeping outside her house and realized that the traveller needed food. She walked inside and returned to the man with a bowl of noodles. While the old man ate, he sat and watched the villagers run about. He asked what all the fuss was about, and the woman explained that because Nian was coming that night, the villagers were going to hide in the hills to ensure that their village was overlooked by the monster. The woman looked worried, and the old man asked her why. The old woman didn't think she'd be able to make the trip to the hills that year. Her bones were old, and she was weary. The old man smiled to himself. He knew how to repay the old woman's kindness. He could tell her how to make sure that the monster Niang never bothered her village again. The next morning, the villagers returned to their houses. They had spent the night in the hills and had heard bangs and seen bright lights coming from the village. They feared that Niang had destroyed their homes, but as they walked down the main street, the people were amazed. Their houses were still standing. Everything looked peaceful. The old woman who refused to come to the hills was outside her home, smiling. "How did you survive Niang?" the villagers asked the old woman. The old woman explained that the traveller had told her an amazing secret about Nian. The monster was afraid of the colour red, loud noises, and fire. The old woman and the traveller had covered the village houses with red paper banners. They had lit firecrackers. They had found every pot and pan they could and banged on them loudly. The monster had turned away from the village because it was scared by the noise and the colour. The following year, all of the villagers stayed behind in the village for the Lunar New Year. They lit firecrackers, banged on drums, and wore the colour red. Nian was nowhere to be seen. From that day to this, the New Year is celebrated in the same way. The villagers know that Nian is only asleep and could easily wake up and decide to attack their town. So each year they use firecrackers, drums, and the colour red to keep him away. And that is how the Chinese New Year got its traditions.